All right, so in this video, we want to create basically kind of like a level generator. What it's mainly set up to do is for us to be able to just generate box 2D bodies that we can use that are like part of our level. So when we were doing box 2D concepts, we basically just had this generate a single body for the ground. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but we're going to set it up where we're doing that as kind of like our body generator, but for level collisions. Eventually, we're going to have that tie in and tag to a tiled map so we can design our maps in there, and then we can have it pull the data out to build it automatically. So, but we want to get to testing for collisions and things like that. So let's do under helpers, and we'll call this level collision generator. Okay. Now I'm going to copy this over so we can use this as a reference, because this is ultimately what we're going to do to start off. So let me comment that out. All right. Control-Shift/. Okay, so we are going to have to, just like the, so since we're not using an entity manager to create the level pieces, that's used for creating the entities that are going to be more dynamic. This is going to be used for creating static bodies. You could use this, I guess, for creating kinematic bodies for like doors opening and things like that, or anything else that the player could interact with. So let's start off with public static final. We're going to create that tag so that we can refer to it, because we're going to have to use it a lot for debugging. Level collision generator dot class dot get simple name, and we know that we're going to have to hold the box 2D world because we're going to be building stuff into it. We know that we're going to end up having to hold the pooled engine because we're going to be building entities into it. So for right now, that is actually probably good. We'll insert, let's do a constructor with those two items. Okay. And I want to just do the whole tiled thing, so I'm going to break this up. Shape that dispose. We don't need that yet. All right, so we know that we're going to have a fixture definition and a body. So let's use our body generator as a reference. We have to have a body def, and a fixture def. So let's just pull those all in there. Let's call this public void create collision level. Okay. And we're going to have to put some stuff in there, but we know that we got to have a body definition, a body, and a fixture definition. New fdef. Okay. So using this as our template, we are going to want to put in an X and Y. We're going to want to put in a width, the type. Okay, so let's go back to our body generator. Actually, you know what? I'm going to copy most of this. We don't need to return anything. So let's copy almost this whole thing, and then we can make it into what we want it to be. So this is just a starting point, but we are going to end up having to change a number of pieces for this. So I don't need that. I'm not passing in an entity. Entity. Okay. We want to create a new entity. Entity. Let's just call it level entity equals engine dot create entity, and that's freaking out because I have an engine. I need, when I'm creating the level though, for now we're going to have these vector2 positions in the dimensions, body type. We don't need that fixture definition. So, okay, so just so we're understanding what I'm basically doing, I'm using a lot of that body generator to create this, to build it, because we know that we're going to be passing the type for that body generation. And we're going to be setting the body, the BDF, the BDEF. So this is fine right here. That's fine. Okay. We'll set the user data as the level entity. Okay. But after we create the body, we're going to need to do a number of pieces. So after we create a body, we're going to have to set it up kind of, so this is kind of acting like the entity manager. So we're going to have a body component that we're putting that body in, a type component, and I guess we could also do the transform component. So let's do the body component. Body component equals engine dot create component, and we're using that body component dot class. component to level entity. Okay. So that body component, we're going to have to set that body. Set body to the body that we created. And that should be good. We're setting the user data right there. Okay. So then that was for the body. Now let's do for the type component. Type component equals engine dot create component type dot class. Okay. And type component dot set type, and we're passing in that figures dot, this would be level. Okay. That type component, that should be good. The transform component, we could also do that one. Engine.create component. Okay. Did we have that set from the entity manager for other stuff? Let's look. Type, body, collision player, state. We have a position. Well, we don't actually have them linked up yet for the transform component. Do we? We don't have it until here, which is in our physics system. Set position and set rotation. And all that's really doing is just holding it. But we're not actually... That's not set up yet. Okay, never mind. We can leave that then. Level collision generator. So let's hold this one off. Ultimately, we're going to need to have the transform component for when we're rendering sprites and things like that. We can put offsets for a transform as a component so that our graphics we can put on top of our Box 2D bodies. So I basically have most of what I need. We need to actually add that level entity needs to add those various components. So let's add the body component and level entity dot. I seem to remember we can add multiple components. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Ashley is set up where you could, instead of doing level entity.add body component, you could do, and as long as you don't put anything after it, you can just continue adding components to it. That would be the exact same as this. Okay. And then we are disposing that shape once we're done. So we're holding our memory well. Let's see, anything else that we need? Yes, we are not passing in a fixture definition, which means that this is our level. We have to work with the fixture definition. So here, fdef needs to collide with all, let's just say basically dynamic entities. But I'm really referring to enemies and to players. So we have to actually set the category bits and mask bits. So fixture fdef dot filter dot category bits is equal to figures dot level that's what it is, and then we are filtering out fdef dot filter dot mask bits. We are filtering out figures dot player we want to interact with, or figures dot enemy, or figures well, we can leave it at that right now. Okay, so we have the mask bits, we have all of that. We finish with the shape. So now we need to take the engine and add that entity. This will be that level entity. Okay, so that should be enough to get us running. Create collision level, and then we can pass in where we want it to be. Okay, and then we can put static body and ground player. All right, so we don't need that in here anymore. And then we would go to our main game screen. And this is Entity Manager, level generator, private level collision generator, and now when we are setting up the systems, we set up our entity manager. Let's set up our level collision generator. New level collision generator. It needs the world. It needs the engine. Okay. Now when we are in our show method, we are creating the player, and let's go ahead and create, let's just call this ground for now, but ultimately we know that we're going to be doing a lot more. Private, this is still an entity, an Ashley entity, but let's just call it ground. So here, ground is equal to level collision generator dot create collision level. And we're going to be passing in just hold a temporary vector. Do we have one? Boop. Okay. Private vector 2 temp position, private vector 2 temp dimensions. Okay, so let's create those. Temp dimensions equals new vector 2 at 0, and temp position equals new vector 2. Okay, all right, so now we have those. We can set them when we're creating that level. So the first thing that we need is vector 2. So yeah, for right now we'll be fine. Let's do temp position dot x is equal to that camera dot viewport width. What do we have? Divided by 2. All right, so we want it to start in the center. Temp position dot y. We want that to start at the viewport height I want it to be at the very bottom. I'm actually just going to put 0 because it's 16 by 11. So this would be 8, and that would be 0. I guess we could put 1 and just give it a dimension of 1. And then our temp dimensions is going to be the x is going to be the length. So camera dot viewport width and temp dimensions dot y is going to be equal to 1. Okay, so now I can plug these in. This is just temporary until we get everything working up. Temp test of level generation. Okay, so we need our position, so that's temp position. We need our dimensions, temp dimensions. We need our body type, which is going to be static body, and we are doing I think that could actually be rewritten. Yep, we could rewrite that. But we want a polygon shape as a box, so we're going to do 1. So 1. What's the error? Body type. All right, so it's erroring out because I need to return that entity to hold a reference to it. Return level entity. And then here, so this will get changed, but we want to be able to test. Okay, so I'm creating ground at that point. I want to test that I'm interacting with it. We should not have things error out. Let's see. I don't see a level. Nope, I can keep moving. So we didn't do something completely right. That's what I get for building it on the fly. We're passing in that it's a static. We're setting the position. So bdef type. Saying what it is. I created the engine, or the entity, level entity. Set type, figures, level. I set the position. Let's temp position. Well, let's just do this. Let's do 1, 1, and 1, and then we can make changes. We just want to make sure that this is working. Okay, so there it's there. I should not be able to push it. Yep. Okay. So I'm interacting with it, which is good. Okay, so now let's extend it out. So our dimensions in the X, let's do camera dot viewport width -1. That would center it a little bit. Well, it's going to be long, but it's going to be extending off the screen. Okay. So that part is done. And then 8 is the middle. Uh-oh. Well, crazy things are happening. I'm interacting, but not like completely. Temp position 1. So really, I'm just kind of going through debugging that I'm understanding how I'm putting my code in, that it's operating how I want. So that viewport width, actually, I think I need to find out, because that it's not liking it when I'm doing that. So gdx.app.log, and we're in the main screen. And so let's just do camera dot viewport width dot let's see what that says. Zero, zero. Well, when I created my camera, so that was the issue. I create my camera, I give it a viewport and pass in the camera. So now that we're using the viewport, maybe it's not such a good idea that we're using the camera as that position. Viewport world width. Let's do that instead. That's more like it. Okay. So I want this to start. That's extending out because it looks like I'm not tagging into the center of that level piece. So that's what I'm really kind of going through. So now it is. I should interact with it well, which I do. Okay. So my point, and that's when it was at 1.1, it was starting at a much smaller size, but it was a little bit over to the left. That is something in here I need to double check when I'm creating that shape, that I'm taking those dimensions and I'm halving them. Position.x plus dimensions, y plus dimensions. I'd have to play around with it. But now we have basically a very basic level collision generator that we will be using for being able to pull tiled data. All right, so you guys should be getting that all linked up, and then I'll have some more videos for building the collisions, being able to track that. And then we're going to be playing around with tiled so that we can build the levels very simply so you guys can test out mechanics. All right, have fun.